Hi, I'm Ellie. I live in Sheffield, the land of chip buddies, passive-aggressive neighbors, and weather that can't commit. I work in marketing, which basically means I get paid to convince people they need things they absolutely don't. And what happened to me? Well, my stepmom banned me from my own dad's funeral, tried to erase me from his will, and thought she could get away with it. Spoiler alert, she didn't. Right, so my dad died. No warm send-off. No final goodbye. No, thanks for raising me. Or remember that time you taught me to change a tire even though I cried the entire time? Nothing, just silence, and not the poetic kind. The legally enforced kind. Why? Because my stepmom, Linda, decided I wasn't emotionally stable enough to attend the funeral. This is coming from the same woman who once tried to deep fry a Caesar salad because it needed crunch. And somehow she's the gatekeeper of dignity now? She told the funeral director I might cause a scene. What does that even mean? Like I was going to swan dive into the coffin sobbing, or stage a West End-style monologue next to the casket. I probably would have just cried, maybe shouted once tops. But no, Linda wasn't taking any chances. So she hired actual security at a funeral, because nothing says grieving family like a 6'2" bloke in a suit glaring at mourners and checking handbags for emotional instability. And here's the part that properly undid me. They didn't even tell me when it was. No message, no card, no, just so you know, your dad's getting buried on Thursday. I found out from Facebook. Someone posted a grainy photo of the coffin and wrote, "Fly high. Big man." I was blocked 5 minutes later. Touching, really. I stood outside the chapel like some tragic ex in a rom-com, except no one noticed. And I definitely wasn't holding flowers. I could hear the organ music through the doors. And it took everything in me not to just boot them open and shout, "I'm his daughter, you absolute witch." But I didn't. Because apparently I'm the dramatic one. Meanwhile inside, Linda was probably doing her best grieving widow impersonation. Even though she once told my dad, "If you die before me, I'm not waiting long to remarry, I look terrible in black." Classy. She made sure her kids were front and center, of course. Her son gave a eulogy about how my dad once helped him pass his driving test. Which is funny, considering he crashed dad's car into a Costa and blamed it on the sat-nav. And me? I stood there outside, in the rain, because of course it rained, dressed in all black, looking like the world's most emotionally repressed goth. People walked past, whispering. One woman asked if I was press. Press? Like I was there to cover my dad's funeral, not mourn it. Honestly, I've been dumped with more compassion. At least exes usually have the decency to ghost you in private. This was a public rejection of my entire existence. And Linda made sure it landed. So yeah, no goodbye, no moment of closure, no dad would have wanted you here. Just a locked door, a hired goon, and the distant hum of a hymn I didn't get to sing. You know what's worse than grief? Being told you're not allowed to feel it. Especially by a woman who once asked if my dad's ashes could be split between a tasteful urn and a novelty wine bottle. But sure, Linda, I'm the unstable one. By the way, still feels like something out of a Channel 5 drama starring someone who used to be in EastEnders, My Darling Stepmother. Linda decided to host what she described as a small intimate while reading, which of course is posh for no Ellie allowed. Now I didn't even get the courtesy of a passive-aggressive email or a dodgy WhatsApp group link. Nope, I found out accidentally, when my cousin rang me in full whisper mode, like she was leaking MI5 secrets. She goes, "Don't tell anyone I told you this, but Linda's having the will reading today. She told me not to invite you. Said it was only for heirs actually mentioned in the will. And then apparently I kid you not, she smirked. The full smug package, like shed just one bake-off with a Victoria sponge laced in betrayal. Now listen, I've seen some delusion in my life. I once worked in a Leeds call center. I've seen things but this. This was next-level confidence from a woman who still thinks my name is Ellie. Louise, after being in my life for 15 years. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I didn't even send a sarky hope it goes well text. I just sat there on the sofa in my dad's old hoodie that still smelled like coffee and stubbornness and stared at the wall like it owed me rent. Because honestly, I expected it. Linda's always had this way of rewriting reality. In her version of the world she raised me, she supported. Dad in his final month, she spent most of them at a spa in York, and she deserves everything he ever owned because marriage is sacred unless, of course, it's his second one to my actual mum, in which case it's a mistake. But yeah, sure, I'm the one who doesn't belong at the reading. Apparently her kids were there too. You know, the ones who once called my dad brave and asked him for $3,000 to start a vape subscription business. Real heirs those. Honestly, I wasn't even angry. I was tired. Tired in that bone, deep, heavy, quiet sort of way. Like when you walk into a pub toilet, and there's no loo roll, and you just stand there questioning every choice that led you to that moment. I didn't want Dad's money. I just wanted some basic decency. Some kind of nod that I still existed, that he hadn't been replaced in his final chapter by a woman who wears leopard print to court hearings and once called hospice care a bit of a downer. But instead I got a message loud and clear. You don't matter anymore. So I did what any emotionally battered but stubborn northern girl would do. I made tea, ate 4 Jaffa cakes out of spite, and waited. Because what Linda didn't know was that while she was busy playing Monopoly with my dad's legacy, I had something far better than revenge. So there they all were. Linda in her usual perfume clouded glory, dressed like she was auditioning for Real Housewives of Barnsley, her grown kids, trying to look somber while very clearly wondering how much a dead man's savings could buy them on Azos. And me, I walked in late, not because I wanted to make an entrance, but because I wanted them to know I didn't need permission to be there. I didn't even knock. I just opened the door mid-sentence. Someone was droning on about respecting his legacy, which, coming from Linda, was rich, and I walked in like I owned the building. Which, funnily enough, I soon might. No dramatic gasp, no shouting, no dramatic piano sting like they do in teledramas. Just silence. One of those thick, stunned, awkward silences that usually only happens when someone's nan accidentally says something racist at Christmas dinner. Linda's head spun round so fast I thought she might dislocate her neck. Her mouth dropped open, not in horror but in inconvenience. Like I was a badly timed Amazon delivery. You weren't invited, she snapped. I smiled, that quiet, terrifying smile that British women do right before they ruin your entire week. Didn't say a word, just handed her solicitor a folder. Lovely bloke, that solicitor. Bit twitchy, probably regrets ever answering Linda's call in the first place. I sat down, crossed my legs, calm, collected, dressed like Karma in a charity shop blazer and eyeliner that had survived 3 separate breakdowns. Her kids, Chad and Chardonnay, or whatever they're calling themselves, these days looked visibly confused. I could almost hear the internal monologue. We who let the real air in. To be fair, they were never that bright. One of them once asked me if Northumberland was near Spain. I don't even think they understood what a will actually is. They probably thought it was a TikTok challenge with legal documents. Linda kept repeating herself. She doesn't belong here, this meeting is for heirs, this is private. You'd think she was trying to ban me from her book club, not erase my entire legal existence. Meanwhile, the solicitor opened the folder, started reading, paused, blinked, then looked at me, back at the papers, then at Linda like she'd just handed him a handwritten note that said, "Everything's mine because I said so." He didn't say anything at first, just sort of blinked again like someone who's just realized they've been drinking oat milk past the expiry date. I watched Linda's face drain like someone had unplugged her. Her fake tan and foundation stayed the same. Color, it was just the soul underneath that turned ghost white. And me, I just sipped my lukewarm tea like I was watching an episode of Come Dine With Me, where someone had just served raw chicken and tried to blame the oven. Not out of malice, not even out of smugness, just relief. Relief that for once I wasn't the one who had to shout to be heard. I just had to show up with the truth and a decent filing system. No tears, no yelling. Just a well-timed folder and the kind of silence that says, "I told you not to underestimate me, but go off, I guess." Because in that moment Linda realized something. I hadn't come for revenge. I'd come to collect. Now I've seen some expressions in my time. I once watched my ex-boyfriend find out he was allergic to prawns. Mid-Wagamama order eyes watering. Lips swelling, full EpiPen panic. That nothing and I mean nothing compares to the face Linda's solicitor pulled when he opened that folder. He stared, blinked, stared again. Then blinked some more, like if he kept doing it fast enough, maybe the papers would disappear and he could go back to pretending. His job didn't involve sorting out family drama that reads like rejected EastEnders scripts. I watched the color drain from his face, like someone had just whispered tax audit in his ear. He looked like a man who had just discovered he'd married his own cousin and that she's also the CEO of the company he's been embezzling from. You know, haunted. Meanwhile, Linda was still on her "this is an outreach" tour, arms flailing like a Daily Mail reader at a vegan sausage roll counter. Then she clocked his face, and her expression went from smug to sour milk. Panic in precisely 0.2 seconds. Honestly, if she'd blinked any harder, her fake lashes would have launched into low orbit. "Where did you get this?" he asked, voice suddenly very not okay. And I very sweetly, very politely, like I wasn't about to blow up the entire pantomime she'd been directing, replied, "Oh, from my father. You remember him? The actual dead one." Honestly, the silence that followed could have cured migraines. One of Linda's kids, I think it was the taller one who once called the North, the bit above Greg's, actually gasped. Like we were in a soap. Like I'd just revealed I was pregnant with his secret half-brother or something. Linda opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Just a tiny wheezy huff. Like the air had suddenly decided she wasn't worth the oxygen. And the solicitor, bless him, was now reading at lightning speed, flipping through pages like they were his personal death warrant. Which in a way they were. Because see, this wasn't just a will. This was the will. Dad's real, final, fully legal, signed on the dotted line will. Not the convenient little photocopy Linda had tried to float into court like it was laminated gospel. Mine had a signature. His handwriting, witnesses. Hell, it even had the date scrawled in his messy. I've had 3 pints and I hate paperwork style. Authentic, annoying, and undeniably him. And the best bit? It left everything to me. Well, almost everything. He left Linda his golf clubs. Which is hilarious, because she once referred to them as those weird sticks he used to ignore me with. Honestly, I could have cried. Not because I was happy. Not because I won. But because for the first time since he died, someone in that room finally looked at me like I mattered. Like maybe I wasn't just the inconvenient leftover daughter from his first marriage. Like maybe he'd made sure I was seen even if it had to be through bloody paperwork. And Linda? Oh, she knew. She knew exactly what was happening. That this whole show she put on, the funeral, the fake will, the smug one-liners and velvet morning gloves, was about to crumble faster than a Poundland biscuit in weak tea. And I didn't have to raise my voice. Didn't even have to get up. Just watched her sink further into that hideous chair she probably bought to look respectable in court. Like a wilting flower. If that flower was covered in self-tanner, it had a moral compass shaped like a corkscrew. All I had to do was smile and sip my tea. Still lukewarm. Still perfect. Because some moments aren't for shouting. They're for witnessing. Right, so picture this. Dad's in his favorite armchair. The one that had more duct tape than cushion by that point. Wearing socks and sandals like it's a personality trait. I'm sat opposite him, pretending not to notice the smell of TCP and nostalgia in the air. Sipping tea that tasted faintly like regret and leftover biscuit crumbs. And then, mid-Corey rerun, he just goes, "I've changed my will." No lead up. No dramatic music. Just casually lobbed in between. Rita slagging. Someone off in an advert for funeral plans. Classic dad. I blinked. He sipped his tea like he'd just announced what was for dinner. Not who'd be inheriting his earthly possessions. Then he leaned in, lowered his voice like we were in some Cold War spy film, and muttered, "Don't trust Linda. Now, let me tell you something. When a man who once tried to glue a lawnmower back together says he doesn't trust someone. You bloody listen. He went on to explain in his usual slightly shambolic, endearingly grumpy way that he'd redone his will privately. Said he didn't want certain people, cough Linda, cough, meddling in things they didn't understand, like legality, or boundaries, or not selling your dying husband stuff on Facebook Marketplace for extra cash. Apparently, the final straw was when she suggested flogging his classic Jaguar, and not in a let's cherish the memories way, but in a we need space in the garage for my new spin bike kind of way. You know, the one he'd spent 2 decades fixing up on weekends, naming it Judy like it was a bloody pet, and once made me promise to never let anyone with frosted tips drive. So yeah, she tried to Marie Kondo his legacy before he was even cold. He slid the will across the coffee table. Properly signed, witnessed, dated. With a smug little post-it note attached that said in his handwriting, "Keep this safe. Linda doesn't know. Don't lose it." And what did I do? I took it. I folded it neatly. And I put it in the least suspicious place imaginable. The inside flap of my secondary school yearbook. Right next to a photo of me looking like I'd been electrocuted. During year 10 maths, Linda would never look there. She didn't believe I had GCSEs, let alone memories. But the truth is, it wasn't just paper. It wasn't just legal jargon and signatures. It was proof. Proof that Dad saw me. That he knew what was happening. That even if he couldn't stop Linda from turning his house into a shrine of beige scatter cushions and passive aggression, he could make sure it wasn't cut out of his final act. And I kept it safe. Alongside every single bit of rage I didn't let out at the funeral. Every insult I swallowed when she called me dramatic for crying at his bedside. Every smirk she gave me. Every time she called his death an opportunity to declutter. It was all there. Tucked between ink and paper and pure, undiluted, don't mess with my daughter energy. I didn't wave it around. Didn't use it like a sword. Not yet. But I waited. Like a well-trained dog with a vendetta and a laminator. Because grief makes you quiet. But being erased? That makes you dangerous. Right, so after my solicitor had finished going through my folder, the actual, legal, grown-up document with witness signatures and real ink, and everything, we moved on to Linda's contribution. And when I say moved on, I mean the solicitor hesitated like he was about to touch something damp behind a radiator. He cleared his throat, pulled out this sad little sheaf of paper, if you can even call it that, and I swear to God, the thing looked like it had been printed during a Year 9 ICT lesson on how to bold text. No watermark, no header, no date, no legal reference numbers, no witness signatures, just one sad, lonely paragraph that basically said, "I, Linda, beloved wife, queen of everything, inherit the law, cheers." Okay, I'm paraphrasing, but not by much. Even worse? The font. Comic, bloody, sans. I wish I was joking. I truly do. But there it was in all its infant school PT newsletter glory, Comic Sans. Like she typed it up between passive-aggressive Facebook comments and her third glass of Tesco Rose. The solicitor blinked like he was physically in pain holding it. His hands started doing that awkward shuffle, like he didn't want to be legally associated with it, like it might give him professional eczema, or revoke his license on site. Linda, bless her, looked proud, like she'd just submitted an award-winning dissertation. She was sat there nodding along, arms folded, wearing that "you're welcome" face people make when they microwave beans for dinner and expect a standing ovation. I glanced at her kids. They looked like they were trying to read it upside down, as if Comic Sans was some kind of ancient legal dialect only their mother understood. And the solicitor, he did what only a British man in a moral crisis could do. He looked directly at Linda and said, in that tone posh people reserve for complaining about a bad croissant, "I'm afraid this wouldn't hold up in court." Wouldn't hold up? Mate, it wouldn't hold up in Hogwarts. The entire room sort of tilted sideways after that. Linda blinked. Once, twice. Then leaned forward like she hadn't heard properly. Like he just told her they canceled Strictly. But I typed it, she said, genuinely confused. Typed it. Typed. As if that alone conferred legal status. As if we were living in some dystopian episode of Antiques Roadshow, where inheritance is awarded based on MS. Word templates and good vibes. Honestly, I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop from laughing. The only reason I didn't burst out into full witch cackle was because my therapist told me to breathe through the chaos and not punch anyone with acrylics. Meanwhile, the solicitor was now very politely trying to explain that a will requires, witnesses, legal protocol, valid signatures, a basic understanding of reality. Linda's face was priceless. A sort of slow-building horror, like she just realized she'd walked into a restaurant with no wallet and the waiter's already bringing the dessert menu. To be fair, she tried to bluff, said something about digital efficiency and streamlining estate matters. You think she was pitching a bloody startup? Not trying to rob a dead man's daughter with Comic Sans and unchecked entitlement. Me? I just sipped my tea. Still lukewarm. Still worth it. Because this was better than any revenge fantasy I dreamt up lying awake at 3 a.m. in Dad's old hoodie. Linda's fake will was falling apart faster than our fake tan in the rain, and all I had to do was let it unravel. Like I said, I didn't have to fight. I just had to show up and wait for her to implode. So, the real will. The one typed like an adult, signed like a grown-up, and filed like someone who didn't think Comic Sans was a legal font. Yeah, that one. The solicitor read it aloud in that professional monotone they teach at solicitor school, the kind of voice that's usually reserved for bad news and customer service apologies. But to me, it was poetry. Shakespearean, operatic, almost biblical. Let's break it down, shall we? The house mine. Not shared, not partial, not some weird everyone gets a room compromise. All mine. The same house Linda tried to redecorate in 50 Shades of Beige. The one she once threatened to turn into an Airbnb with healing energy. Yeah, that house. Now legally mine, and the healing energy absolutely radiating Babes. His savings. Split between me and a cancer research charity. Linda's face when he said the word charity was like someone had slapped her with a Tesco club card. You could almost hear her internal monologue going. But I'm the charity. Sweetheart, you're not even the tax write-off. His car. The beloved old Jaguar. The one Linda once called an old man's rust bucket. Left to me. And not just left, no. He attached a handwritten note. An actual pen. Cursive. Like it was a Jane Austen letter, but written by a bloke who used to fix things with duct tape and spite. It said, to Ellie, because she's the only one who knows how to drive a manual and the only one who bloody deserves it. I nearly cried. Like real proper tears. Not the mascara-striked dramatic ones I did in the Sainsbury's toilet when Linda banned me from the funeral. I mean actual hard tears. And Linda. Oh, Linda. She got a small monthly allowance. Nothing glamorous. Think enough for a bottle of Prosecco and some acrylic refills sort of monthly. But still something which, let's be honest, was more than she deserved. Personally, I think Dad did it out of pity. Because he knew she'd spend the rest of her life in that house if he let her, claiming she manifested it through candles and crystal therapy. So instead he gave her a tiny humiliating check once a month, like a reminder that she wasn't cut out of the will. She was quietly put in the corner. She looked like she was going to be sick in her knockoff designer handbag. And her kids. Oh, babes. Not a penny. No mention. Not even a courtesy line like, to insert child name, I leave my regrets. Just nothing. It was as if he'd gone into Microsoft Word, selected their names, and hit backspace with his middle finger. You should have seen their faces. They looked like someone had canceled Christmas and Love Island in the same breath. The older one muttered something about disrespect, and the younger one, the one who once tried to pay for Greg's with Dogecoin, looked like he was going to cry into his fake Gucci hoodie. And me, I didn't gloat. Didn't say I told you so. Didn't even smirk. I just sat there, quietly calmly, trying not to sob into my own jumper. Because for all the chaos and the betrayal and the funeral from hell, Dad saw me, not just legally, but emotionally. He saw everything. And he made sure in his final act on this planet that I knew it. He left me more than just bricks and cash and an old car. He left me acknowledgement. And in a world full of Lindas. That's priceless. So there we were. Me quietly victorious. Linda rapidly spiraling. And the solicitor, bless him, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Even a motorway service station toilet. And then it happened. She screamed. Not just a little yelp of frustration. No. We're talking full exorcism screech. Like someone had told her leopard print was being banned nationwide. She stood up so fast her chair nearly went flying. Which would have been dramatic if it hadn't just wobbled awkwardly on the carpet and made that squeaky little sorry I tried sound. Then she pointed at me, literally pointed. Like she was about to deliver some courtroom zinger on a Channel 5 afternoon drama. She forged it. She manipulated an old man who was sick and confused. Right, because nothing screams confused old man like a legally signed, witnessed and perfectly filed will with matching documentation and no Comic Sans. I didn't even flinch. Didn't defend myself. Didn't rise to it. Just sat there, calm, sipping a coffee so bland it could have been boiled bean juice. Meanwhile, her voice cracked halfway through another shriek, like a pounding kettle giving up halfway to boiling. She clearly rehearsed this in front of a mirror. Possibly with music. Probably Celine Dion. The solicitor, poor man, took a breath, adjusted his glasses, and said in that neutral British tone reserved for politely breaking terrible news. Actually, this is the legally valid will. Yours isn't enforceable. At all, actually. She stared at him like he'd just told her the earth was flat and sequins were illegal. And then this bit was chef's kiss. She tried to storm out. Tried. Because you simply cannot storm out in stilettos. On carpet. It was like watching a flamingo in a tube sock. All intention, no momentum. One heel got caught slightly. So instead of a dramatic exit, she sort of shuffled aggressively. Aggressively shuffled. Like an angry aunt leaving a wedding early, but not before grabbing her slice of cake. Her kids followed, bless them. Like 2 Poundland bodyguards with vape pens and 0 inheritance. One of them tried to slam the door, but it was one of those soft-closed types. So it just slowly creaked shut in total silence. The drama? Flatlined. And me? Well, I just did a small, satisfying hair flip. Not big, not flashy. Just enough to say, I didn't win because I screamed louder. I won because I was right. And also mildly terrifying with a filing cabinet. Then I finished my coffee. Awful as it was. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You survive the madness, sip the bad drink, and walk out knowing you don't have to scream when the truth is loud enough. So I thought that was it. Legal documents sorted. Linda dramatically shuffle-stormed into irrelevance. Me left holding the keys. A bittersweet wind tied with a bow of grief and mild pettiness. But no. Of course not. Because her kids came crawling back. And I don't mean polite email asking for closure, crawling. I mean full-on emotional negotiation. Like they were contestants on Deal or No Deal. Except the prize was my dad's legacy and the banker was me. In my dressing gown holding a cup of builder's tea. First came the sun. You know the one. Chad or Brad or sad, something vowel-heavy and personality light. Turns up at my door wearing a leather jacket 3 sizes too. Small in breath that screamed. Energy drinks and regret. He goes, Ellie, listen. I know there's been tension, but I always admired your dad. Proper bloke. Real class. And I'm sat there thinking, right, is this the same real class? You once called a boring old fart when he refused to fund your crypto NFT vape app idea? But sure. Go on. Then he hits me with it. Straight face. No shame. I was wondering. About his Rolex, I always fancied it. Thought it might come my way, you know? Sentimental value. Sentimental value. From the man who once asked if Rolex was that watch brand you get with your Tesco points. I stared at him so long the air got awkward. Then said, "Sure, you can have it. If you can spell Rolex without looking it up." Silence. Then panic. Then a very sweaty shuffle off the porch. I offered him a biscuit on the way out. Generous, I thought. 2 days later. Enter the daughter? Name something like Chantal Marie or possibly Chardonnay Deluxe. Hair extensions visible from space. Tan so orange it gave the neighbors sunburn. She messages me on Instagram, which she's blocked me on twice before. By the way, and asks if we can have a quick word for closure. Closure. Translation. Please fund my next bougie meltdown. She rocks up in head to toe. Designer knockoffs and a voice. Like she's auditioning for Toei, The Forgotten Years. Starts with the usual. We're family. Blood doesn't lie. To which I nearly replied. Neither does a paternity test, but here we are. Anyway, she says. Look, I've had a tough time since the will thing. I need a reset. A wellness break. Would you consider covering a spa retreat? Just for a week or two? Detox the trauma. A spa retreat. Because losing access to money. You weren't legally entitled. Tio is exhausting apparently. I asked her. How do you feel about a different kind of detox? Like, from entitlement? She didn't get it. Obviously. So I did what any emotionally exhausted daughter of a man who tried his best would do. I smiled. Politely. And printed out directions to the nearest job center plus. Folded them. Tucked them in a lovely envelope. Even added a heart sticker. Because I'm classy like that. Gave it to her. Sighed. Here's something that'll actually change your life. She opened it. Saw what it was. Didn't thank me. Didn't scream either. Just stormed off in heels that wobbled like her sense of self. And me? I went back inside. Made a cuppa. Put my feet up. And texted my mate. Apparently I'm the villain now for not giving. Free spa holidays to strangers. I've never emotionally bonded with. She replied. Iconic. Absolutely iconic. Honestly. Being the bad guy in someone else's delusional fanfiction? Feels incredible. So, a few quiet weeks pass. No new drama. No knockoff handbag slinging. No surprise WhatsApps asking if I've moved past the tension. Just peace. Glorious, awkward, slightly boring peace. And then, of course, Linda strikes again. Because obviously, no saga is complete without the world's least self-aware woman sending a letter. A letter through the actual post like it's 1996. And she's auditioning for Downton Abbey. The delusion years. It was written on floral stationery. Smelt faintly of desperation and expired body spray, and it read, Dear Ellie, I would love to invite you for tea and reconciliation. We're family after all. Time heals. Tea. And reconciliation. Two things I usually associate with passive-aggressive in-laws. And people who pronounce the T. In croissant. Not the woman who hired private security to keep me out of my own dad's funeral. Also, we are family? I mean, technically, sure. In the same way a traffic warden is technically helping society. Doesn't mean I want to have a cuppa with them. I stare at the letter for a solid 10 minutes. Then reread it in different accents. Irish, Scottish, Essex, Cockney. Still sounded like crap in every single one. So I did what any mature, evolved adult woman would do. I replied. On a post-it note. Folded it. Put it back in the same envelope. Returned it first class because I'm not cheap, just traumatized. My message? Family doesn't lock you out of your father's funeral. Cheers. And that was that. She tried Gil, of course. Sent along. Unhinged voice note the following week. Full of things like forgiveness. And moving forward. And how my dad would want peace. Which was ironic, really. Considering the woman never let him rest in peace, even when he was alive. I didn't reply. Not out of spite. But because, honestly, I've already said goodbye. Once at the hospice with a hand squeeze and a whispered thank you. Once at the solicitor's with a folder and a face that said try me. And now, again to her. Some doors are better left shut, preferably triple locked, with a polite "do not disturb" sign hanging off the knob. Besides, I didn't need her tea. I had my own. Hot, strong, and not brewed in hypocrisy. So cheers, Linda. Enjoy your monthly allowance. I'll be busy renovating my house. With healing energy. And zero Comic Sans.